السياسية والاقتصادية الهامة. إذاعة الجزائر الدولية، صوتنا في العالم.
With Radio Algeria International, you will not miss a single major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
In today's top stories, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has issued instructions for the immediate return of Algeria's ambassador to the sister Republic of Niger to Niamey. At the 48th Executive Council of the African Union meeting in Addis Ababa, Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf said Algeria hopes that the African Union's participation in the G20 will contribute to bringing the continent out of marginalization. The UN Development Programme, in cooperation with local civil society organizations in Gaza, has begun removing 370,000 tons of waste that had accumulated during the Zionist aggression that lasted for more than 2 years. Hello and welcome to Radio Algeria International. I'm Jamal Samani. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has issued instructions for the immediate return of Algeria's ambassador to the sister Republic of Niger to Niamey. According to a statement issued by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the decision follows the return of the ambassador of the Republic of Niger to Algeria and his resumption of duties today, Thursday. The same source added that the decision also reflected the high importance granted by the President of the Republic to strengthening fraternal relations and cooperation and good neighborliness with Niger. The statement also said that the step constituted an incentive to revive bilateral political consultation at the highest levels and resume the multifaceted cooperation initiated by the two brotherly countries, as well as the implementation of strategic projects in the service of regional and continental integration. As our top stories, the 48th session of the Executive Council of the African Union has resumed for the second and final day in the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa, with the participation of the Minister of State in charge of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Mr. Ahmed Attaf, entrusted by the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune. The details in this report by Mr. Charfi.
In his statement, Mr. Attaf said the Johannesburg summit's outcomes are an important gain for Africa, reaffirmed Algeria's support for AU participation, and backed measures to share representation and unify Africa's voice within the G20.
The outcomes of this summit represent an important gain for our continent, a gain that should be invested in and built upon within the framework of the African Union's permanent membership in the G20. Algeria once again reaffirms the importance of optimal preparation for the African Union's participation in this group, as participation is not an end in itself, but a means we hope will help lift our continent out of marginalization and exclusion. From this perspective, my country's delegation supports the measures previously adopted to share representation tasks between the Commission and the rotating presidency, and proposes drawing inspiration from the Oran track experience to also unify the African voice within the G20.
Earlier, Mr. Attaf held bilateral talks in Addis Ababa on the sidelines of the Executive Council of the African Union AU with several counterparts, including the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade of the Republic of Zimbabwe, Mr. Aman Marwira, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Mr. Yusuf Maitama Tugar, and the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Ronald Lamula, during which they reviewed ways to strengthen bilateral relations, enhance coordination within the African Union, address regional security and development challenges, and advance joint efforts in line with the orientations of the presidents of the brotherly countries.
Now, the 6th annual high-level meeting of the Energy Dialogue between Algeria and the European Union has been held here in Algiers, aiming to assess cooperation in the energy sector and examine ways to develop it. The meeting, co-chaired by the Minister of State in charge of hydrocarbons and mines, Mohammed Arqab, the Minister of Energy and Renewable Energies, Murad Ajel, and the European Commissioner for Energy and Housing, Dan Jorgensen, was held within the Algeria-EU Strategic Energy Partnership to review common interest and assess progress since the last October 2023 meeting, including Europe's gas supply, electricity, interconnection, renewable energies, hydrogen, and energy efficiency. Mr. Arqab reaffirmed Algeria as a reliable gas supplier to Europe and his commitment to reducing emissions and strengthening the strategic energy partnership with the European Union.
Vice President of the committee managing the camp reported that a catastrophic fire broke out at the Al Omda camp near Tawila in North Darfur, killing a 3-year-old child, injuring 13 people, and destroying around 500 makeshift homes. The International Organization for Migration, IOM, reported that the fire displaced 514 families to Tawila, which already shelters hundreds of thousands of displaced people from El Fasher, North Darfur. In this regard, drone aircraft belonging to the Rapid Support Paramilitary Forces RSF attacked 3 sites in the state of South and North Kordofan, killing at least 1 person and injuring others, while the army targeted RSF positions around Bara in North Kordofan. Local sources reported that at least 1 student was killed and 18 others injured after an RSF drone targeted a Quranic school in Al Rahad, North Kordofan, while drones struck civilians targets in Tandalti and Al Dalanj, South Kordofan. Military sources said armed forces drone continued attacks on RSF in Bara, North Kordofan, and Taiba, South Kordofan. The escalation followed the army lifting the siege on Kadugli and Al Dalanj, reconnecting the sites and allowing humanitarian aid, while the army also destroyed RSF drones and air defense systems in Darfur and Kordofan. Since April 2023, the conflict between the Sudanese army and the RSF has killed tens of thousands, displaced 14 million people, and triggered one of the world's worst humanitarian crises.
That was a mistake that we had regarding a massive fire in a displaced persons camp in Western Sudan has killed 1 child and injured others, leaving hundreds of already displaced people homeless. That was the report. But going back to our report regarding the 6th annual high-level meeting of the energy dialogue between Algeria and the European Union, where Mr. Arqab reaffirmed Algeria as a reliable gas supplier to Europe and its commitment to reducing emissions and strengthening the strategic energy partnership with the European Union. The meeting is also part of implementing the Memorandum of Understanding on the Strategic Partnership in Energy signed in Algiers in 2013, aimed at developing and strengthening relations while respecting a balance of interests between the two parties. Still here in Algiers, the Minister of Agriculture and Yassin Al-Mahdi Walid has highlighted in Rome, Italy, the main axis of the strategy adopted by Algeria to strengthen its food security and achieve sustainable development, notably in rural and Saharan areas, during his participation in the 49th session of the Board of Governors of the International Fund for Agricultural Development. Now, the UN spokesperson Stéphane Dujarric confirmed that the United Nations Development Programme, in cooperation with local civil society organizations in Gaza, has begun removing 370,000 tons of waste that had accumulated during the Zionist aggression that lasted for more than 2 years, turning the area into a hotbed of pollution amid the collapse of basic services, including garbage collection and sewage systems. The World Health Organization, WHO, stated that the risk of international spread of the Nipah virus is low following the detection of 3 recent cases in India and Bangladesh, one of them fatal. Let us listen to the statement of WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus during a press conference held on Wednesday in Geneva.
One rare but deadly disease for which we do not yet have a vaccine is Nipah virus. In the past few weeks, 3 cases of Nipah, 2 in India and 1 in Bangladesh, made headlines and caused concern about a wider outbreak. Over 230 contacts have been followed, but no further cases have been identified. The 2 outbreaks are not related, although both occurred along the India-Bangladesh border and share some of the same ecological and cultural conditions, as well as populations of the species of fruit bat that are known to be the natural reservoir of Nipah virus. WHO is working with India and Bangladesh on risk assessment, follow-up of contacts, risk communication, and community engagement. WHO assesses the risk of spread of Nipah virus regionally and globally as low.
World Radio Day, celebrated annually on February 13th, commemorates the power of radio to promote dialogue, tolerance and peace while highlighting its role in emergency communication and connecting communities. The Algerian radio celebrated today World Radio Day, highlighting its role in providing information, fostering community ties and promoting modernization. Masoud Shafi again.
For the 2026 editions, the focus is on digital transformation, digitizing archives, and launching English language versions, strengthening its national and international presence. As part of the celebration of the World Radio Day this year here at the Algerian Radio headquarters, an important media event was organized under the supervision of the Director General of Algerian Radio, Mr. Adel Slaqji. Mr. Slaqji announced the launch of the English version of the Algerian Radio website, as well as the completion of the digitization of archives in a strategic move aimed at promoting the digital transformation of the institution, enhancing its audio memory and expanding its media influence at the national and international levels.
The completion of the project to digitize the Algerian radio archives constitutes a decisive milestone in the institution's history. We have chosen to preserve our audio memory not as a relic of the past, but as a living heritage that serves the present and lays the foundations for the future. As a continuation of the ongoing digital transformation process of Algerian radio, in harmony with our country's major orientations, we take this opportunity to announce the launch of the English version of the Algerian radio website, in line with national guidelines aimed at opening up to living languages, foremost among them English as a language of global communication.
Let's recall that this year's theme is Radio and Artificial Intelligence. AI is a tool, not a voice. It explores how AI can enhance content creation, translation, and accessibility, while emphasizing that human editorial judgment remains central. The objective is to showcase that technology supports rather than replaces the authentic human connection of radio.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. Stay tuned.
Hi there and welcome. On the 13th of February, UNESCO joined efforts with several international regional professional radio organizations, including the Arab States Broadcasting Union ASBU, based here in Algeria, and its member radio corporations to celebrate the 8th edition of World Radio Day. As a matter of fact, this day marks a time when people around the world celebrate radio and how it shapes our lives. In fact, radio informs, transforms, and unites us. Radio brings together people and communities from all backgrounds to foster positive dialogue for a salutary change. More specifically, radio is the perfect medium to counter the appeals for violence, extremism, racism, and discrimination, and the spread of conflicts, especially in regions of the world potentially more exposed to such bitter realities. It should be stressed that radio is the mass media, reaching the widest audience in the world. It is also recognized as a powerful communication tool and a low-cost medium, as its main goal is to spread a culture of peace, tolerance, and brotherhood among peoples of the world. Radio is specifically suited to reach remote communities and vulnerable people, the illiterate, the disabled, women, youth, and the poor, while offering a platform to intervene in the public debate, irrespective of people's educational level. Furthermore, radio has a strong and specific role, notably in emergency communication and disaster relief. There is also a change in face to radio services, which in the present times and media convergence are taking up new technological forms such as broadband, mobiles and tablets. However, it is said that up to 1 billion people still do not have access to radio today, and this adverse trend should be reversed gradually. First of all, unlike other attempts at, for example, reconciliation face-to-face work or focus groups, radio doesn't require the individuals participating to be in the same location. Especially for areas unserved by governments that don't have infrastructure or strong roads, radio can reach populations in very remote areas. For instance, women who may not be allowed by cultural norms or local institutions to leave their homes can get access to radio. In fact, a number of communities we worked with had women's listening groups that they developed to help broaden their audience there among a group of individuals who otherwise would not be capable to go, for example, to a local NGO or local school. So it's a powerful way to reach them, so quite powerful because it doesn't matter if the population to which you are speaking is illiterate or illiterate. While a lot of materials being developed in this field of peace building and conflict resolution does require some level of education, radio programming does not. As long as the individuals in the community are being spoken to in the language they understand, it doesn't require them to have education beforehand. Well, despite the emergence of other effective media streaming on the internet, like digital media and social media, radio itself and the informal nature of radio listening allows the program to be more powerful. People can listen, have multiple broadcasts that can be at different times. It is also quite cost-effective. Those reasons together make it a very potent medium to use. Especially because radio themselves are a widely available technology and because radio waves and radio programming are also relatively accessible across the areas of the world. This can be a powerful policy tool used by people around the world, whether in developed or developing countries, to foster peace building and ensure conflict settlement and even help speed up the end of brutal foreign occupation through awareness-raising campaigns with the active support of the whole international community in line with UN resolutions and international legality. Furthermore, specialized broadcasts ought to be promoted as the radio services should always strive to be closer to the citizens, notably by favoring on-the-field investigative reporting work in order to give a helping hand to the local communities, notably in times of distress or natural disasters like damaging earthquakes through efficient and swift lines of communications. In so doing, there will be ultimately linking up with other community radio stations across the countries, and also with the main broadcasters. So there were all these bridges that were built between journalists and between communities. Communities were able to see that we are not alone there. We are not the only ones that have these issues and these challenges, and if we can all work together, then perhaps we can all solve many vexed issues by being closely interconnected. It's obvious that radio broadcasts play a major role in sensitizing people to various outstanding issues confronting our daily lives, notably by fulfilling the bounden threefold mission of duly informing, educating, and entertaining the listeners from all walks of life in line with the ethical values. So why not choose to live it in an environment of dialogue, tolerance, and peace? Obviously, life is more pleasant in these circumstances. We can do international things to promote dialogue, tolerance, and peace, but start in our own families, in our own environment to do it. This is a good way to practice to perhaps to be more effective subsequently at the international level. Radio is in the sense of good way, a reliable medium for dialogue between us internationally, even if in some areas it is not accessible because there is no internet. This will always be an extremely important way to understand and interact with each other. In addition, broadcast owners should live up to the aspirations of their radio listeners and always keep abreast with the events unfolding in their own country and on the world scene in order to face up to any contingency. In so doing, they ought to promote interactive phoning programs in order to respond to the listeners' queries, notably those in need or in distress, irrespective of their social status, as part of the well-meaning communication missions. In other words, radio ought to provide a space where people can get together and discuss and argue and express their comments in a non-violent manner. Communication is an effective instrument that can promote grassroots democracy, to air local issues, to promote an alternative source of information, to official channels, to reflect all the diversities that some of these countries at conflict have within their context. All in all, the radio medium is also critical in providing important information during times of conflict and post-conflict, information that will help to reunite families, that will help people find food, shelters, safe water, information that can even help to diffuse tensions and the chaos that we often find during periods of conflicts or foreign military occupation.
Artificial intelligence is defined as the ability of a digital computer or a computer-controlled robot to perform tasks associated with intelligent beings. Nowadays, some limited artificial intelligence applications, such as medical diagnosis, computer search engines, voice or handwriting recognition, and chatbots, have evolved to the point where some programs can perform at the same levels as human experts and professionals. AI systems typically function by absorbing large quantities of labeled training data, examining the data for correlations and patterns, and using these patterns to forecast future states. Artificial intelligence can be used by employees to handle repetitive, low-skilled jobs, saving hours of labor. Even though machines have been previously used on production lines, artificial intelligence enables to manage a wide range of jobs more effectively than in the past. Every business benefits from this. Businesses save money by using technology to handle routine chores rather than hiring people. It even reduces non-compliant fees and operating costs. Artificial intelligence is applied in many sectors, from digital marketing to healthcare. Depending on the activity, the kind of level of AI required will vary. For example, automating emails will require less processing power than going through a registry of patient information. AI is used not only for sorting information, but also for academic research and facial recognition. In addition, devices using AI are also used outside of the work sphere. Smart devices using AI can lower electricity costs and facilitate easier household management. Artificial intelligence was limited to sci-fi literature, video games, and motion pictures just a few years ago. Despite being commonplace, some argue that it is not even close to attaining its full potential yet. However, many fear that the use of AI will result in job losses. Experts reported that this is happening at a small scale. A common example could be the self-checkouts in shops or supermarkets. This is one simple example of how AI is replacing human tasks while simultaneously taking away job opportunities. Moreover, there is an urgent need to address the issue of the lack of transparency in AI systems, especially with deep learning models that can be challenging to understand. People may become distrustful of AI systems and reject their adoption if they are unable to understand how they arrive at their findings. Another issue that should be addressed is the amplification of social biases that AI systems perpetuate due to biased training data and algorithmic design. Introducing moral and ethical values in AI systems is challenging, especially when those systems are making decisions that could have major consequences. Researchers and developers must prioritize the ethical implications of AI technologies. AI technologies also present privacy concerns, as large volumes of personal data are frequently collected and analyzed by AI systems, which raises concern about data security and privacy. In order to reduce privacy risks, data protection laws and secure data management procedures must be advocated. Regarding security risks, it has been reported that as AI technologies advance in sophistications, security risks and possibilities for abuse that come with using them increase as well. By using AI, malicious actors and hackers can create sophisticated cyber attacks, bypass security measures, and take advantage of weaknesses in systems. The UN Under-Secretary General for Global Communication, Melissa Fleming, stressed that AI has been used already on social media to circulate disinformation and hate speech, which threatens human progress. Deepfakes and other AI-generated content are used to manipulate public opinion and share misleading information. In the digital age, efforts to identify and counteract misinformation produced by AI are essential to maintaining the integrity of information. To that, Mrs. Fleming added the following.
Disinformation actors take advantage of algorithms that are designed to prioritize outrage and user engagement. They are programmed to amplify the posts that generate outrage and often result in promoting hate speech. By design, they at the same time limit the reach of factual, reliable information, including from the United Nations. But large-scale disinformation operations have had their own limits. Up until recently, they required significant investment in content creation, they needed manpower, and a big, broad influencer network. But with the advent of generative AI technology, the cost and manpower barriers have been lifted. This means the online environment is about to get even worse.
Besides, Melissa Fleming recalled that it is challenging to detect whether content is AI-generated or real. She added that the UN is concerned by the following.
Targeted disinformation is already impacting UN peace and security efforts, and in many parts of the world, UN peace, humanitarian, and political operations are the subject of false narratives. This endangers UN staff and also the civilians they are tasked with aiding and protecting. I would like to recall a recent survey of our peacekeepers where more than 70% who responded to the survey said that mis and disinformation severely or critically affected their ability to implement their mandates. 70%. And this is the landscape that they're already operating in. Now, enter cheap, off-the-shelf AI services, and targeted disinformation is becoming an even more potent weapon in the information wars. Those working to keep the peace, to deliver humanitarian aid, and to report on atrocities are becoming targets themselves of twisted stories. And this can undermine their missions by turning populations and donors against them.